So what is really at stake here, and what else can we expect in 2024? Let's bring in a panel of experts to discuss. Joining us now, Daniel Newman, CEO and principal at the Futurum Group, and Sinead Bovell. She is a futurist and the founder of WAYE. Sinead, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, particularly your last name. I want to start with you and pick up where Danny Savalos was. How important is this New York Times case against the purveyors of ChatGPT? And what do you expect to happen? Are these publishing companies likely to reach some sort of settlement with the AI aggregators, I suppose I'd phrase it?
Yes, I would say that the New York Times case, it's the most significant lawsuit to date. And there's kind of two reasons there. On the first, it's the star power of the New York Times. This is the biggest U.S. media company to really go after these AI companies. But the New York Times is also claiming something new, that ChatGPT is a direct competitor to their subscription model. And this throws some of the arguments that a lot of AI companies are making, such as fair use. It really throws this out the window. Because if ChatGPT is seen to be a substitute for subscribing to the New York Times and as a source of trusted information, well, the New York Times really does have something there.
Are these lawsuits, Sinead, are these lawsuits an existential threat, as Savalos said, to artificial intelligence?
It depends on which way they go. The current lawsuits that are already opened, such as some of the visual artists, some of that has already been dismissed. If the New York Times wins and the judge does, in fact, follow one of their requests, which is for any AI model that's been trained on any of their data to be dismantled and retrained without their information, that changes the future of AI. What I do think is more likely to happen is that OpenAI, Microsoft, and the New York Times reach some form of a settlement, and there's a licensing deal, the same way OpenAI has done licensing deals with other media companies. And in fact, the New York Times and OpenAI tried to reach a licensing deal last spring, and it just didn't happen. That's what I think is likely to happen. If they win and the judge or the court actually decides we do want to honor all of their requests and want them to retrain these models, that this is a copyright disaster, let's build these differently, that is, in some ways, an existential challenge for AI companies.
Yeah. Daniel, in the meantime, we have a lot of corporate adoption trends to consider. You have a survey, if you don't mind, giving us a little glimpse of what your findings are. What should we expect in terms of demand and the kinds of companies that will be spending and maybe benefit from further AI adoption next year?
Yeah, we did a first look, Kelly, at the AI decision-making data in the enterprise, talked to over 1,000 companies, looking at the implementers, along with the technologies that they intend to use. And we found a couple of really interesting trends. The first is that this year, while it was a really big year, say for an NVIDIA, maybe for Microsoft, based upon GPU sales and the early adopters, it was actually a bit of a coiled spring year. You heard Cisco's Chuck Robbins talk about how a lot of purchasing happened and now the implementation is going to follow. He talked about that in his last earnings report. And we're seeing the same thing here. We're seeing, about 300% rise of companies that plan to spend more than $2 million next year on their AI implementations. That's 3 times this year. So we're seeing some really big growth. We're also seeing significant outlooks as to where that spend is going to be. The combination of the big integrators, with Accenture leading the way, but also the companies that they plan to work with, which unsurprisingly led with Microsoft and Google, as well as AWS, but others like IBM that have made big investments and big bets are coming up on top of the list. So some really interesting early findings, but what we're seeing is the spending is really just beginning. It's not as far along as some people might feel.